Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our session, Noahide Path, with Rabbi Moshe Shulman. Today he'll be continuing with part 3 of a survey of the Tanakh for Noahides, and he continues with the book of Leviticus and into Numbers. I think there's always something he shares that's useful for people. He should be along very shortly, so for now, let's just tune in to the Zoom room.
We have
you're
free
invited
will,
to come to the Zoom room.
and
I did post a
ideally,
link in the Facebook.
we'll I mean,
I
like
see
just
the
like the
rabbis here,
Noahides,
so
we will
yeah, let's
ally,
turn the class
we will stand
over.
with Israel. But yeah, that's an issue of free will. Unfortunately, in the past, it hasn't been so nice for Israel most of the time. It's been very difficult. And when they talk, but yeah, these numbers like all or this or that are more, it's fluid. We have a choice. Oh boy! So that these words of wisdom are going out to somewhere. Uh-oh, sorry.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we're in trouble now.
Okay, well, our start time is in a few minutes, so I haven't started my recording yet. So it's a few minutes to go.
You mean Bob and Veronica?
See what we got here. Okay, let's see who looks new here. I think Wendy, is this your first time here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
You were there last time, or last
Nice to meet you.
Okay, I just let somebody in. Patrick, okay, fine. So we'll wait just a couple more minutes and then start. Got very warm here today. It looks very warm.
You mean Bob and Veronica?
See what we got here. Okay, let's see who looks new here. I think Wendy, is this your first time here? I'm hearing an echo. What's going on here? So if I forget what I'm saying, I should just, turn that on and remind myself what I was talking about. That's a good idea. I told my wife a joke I saw. We were both laughing. There was an old couple. So the wife is telling the husband she wants him to go to the store and get her a sundae with a lot of whipped cream on top, with sprinkles and a cherry on top of it. So she tells him, listen, you got to write it down. You know how you forget everything. He said, no. I'll remember everything. Don't worry about it. I won't forget. I says, listen, you got to write it down. If you don't write it down, you're not going to remember. Remember, I'm going to have a sundae with cream on it and sprinkles and a cherry on top. Just don't forget that. He says, don't worry, I won't forget it. So 2 hours later, he comes back with a hamburger and French fries. And she says, I told you should have written down. You forgot to bring the extra ketchup.
Speaking of whipped cream, Rabbi, today is my birthday. I'm 58 today, so enjoy to spend my birthday.
A young whippersnapper, 58, a young whippersnapper.
Oh, just a kid.
Yeah, just a young'un.
Yeah.
young man.
I don't feel young every day, that's for sure.
You have barely learned about what life is about. Daniel said he got that joke. Yeah, I think you have to be a certain age to understand that joke. Okay, so anyways, we'll just wait a couple more minutes. So we're streaming and everything?
Actually, to live that joke, you have to live that joke to understand it.
Yeah.
Now, this heat makes you very, very tired. I tried to lie down a little bit after the morning session, and it's just not working so well. So
I'll take this little opportunity to put a plug in for Simply Noahide book. Okay, Veronica, are we friends now?
We've
Yeah,
always been friends, Bob.
yeah, Bob, that's such a pretty nice book. There's a few books out there that there has to be more things written for Noahides. It's really, most of the stuff is written for more basic for Jews and including, that material for Noahides to read. But it's not written from the perspective of, Noahides themselves, because it's different. Okay, you're not Jews in training. Okay, you're just you're people who are Noahides trying to find a Noahide path, which, as we talked a lot of time, it has its own paradigm. It's not the same as what a Jew is supposed to live like. There's the paradigm of a Jew in this paradigm, no, and it's different. It's very similar. Obviously, many of the basics and fundamentals are there, but the obligations and different things involved are different. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of things out there that have a lot of good information. But they weren't written for Noahides, they're written for Jews. So they assume, first of all, they assume certain types of information. And second of all, they assume a certain paradigm of what's important. Like, for example, any book written for Jewish people, as far as moralistic, it will place the learning of Torah as a primary thing, as a primary goal in life. That's your primary thing. That's the whole thing your life is about. And other things are very important also, but the learning of Torah. So, for example, Pirkei Avos. I've many times thought, how could I give a class on Pirkei Avos that would be relevant for Noahides? Because a huge portion of it is talking about in relationship to learning Torah, the mitzvah of learning Torah, which applies to a Jew and doesn't apply to a Noahide. There's a specific mitzvah for a Jew to learn Torah, regardless of what the material is. Where for Noahide, there's a logical imperative to learn the Noahide laws for those things that apply to you for be able to live practically. It's different, it's subtle. We're going to actually talk about later when we get into Torah study for Noahides, the difference and how to, in a practical way to work on it, to do it. But besides that, there's like a huge amount of stuff in Pirkei Avos which is relevant to everybody. This week there was we learn every week one Pirkei Avos until Rosh Hashanah. So this week it says that you should look at three things and you won't come to sin: where you came from, where you're going to, who you're supposed to be giving a judgment before. That would be also not relevant for Noahides. What exactly they're talking about and how that would actually relate to Noahides also. So it's very hard to, have a book that's out there. Veronica's book is one of the things that I think that are very good for Noahides. But it's very hard to have a book out there which is written that's relevant for this to where somebody's holding. An example for that would be like, for example, Jewish people. I mean, for example, somebody's Jewish or Hasidic. There's a lot of different books that are written, Hasidic form that are written, but not every one is for every single person, depending on who you are. So if you spend your time learning a work which is not for you, you're not getting anything out of it. I mean, this works are more Kabbalistic. There's different things, and so for Noahide, there's just not really much material out there that's specifically written for Noahide. There's no something like general, level. It's not. Most of the things that have been written are written basically with having Jews in mind, or written as if they were written for Jews. Even though they might have great information for Noahides, but they weren't written for Noahides. They were written for basically as a person writes for Jews, but only with Noahide topics. There's a lot of that stuff out there. I'll be drinking a lot because I'm very, very hot. Okay, I'll start with it. But again, Veronica's work is one of the nicest. Somebody told me they were reading a book by I can't remember his name right now. Anamuna and Noahides. I started looking through it. Again, I think it's a little bit more.
Rabbi,
I can't remember his name. Bob, who's the author of that? I can't remember his name.
Laser Brody, isn't it? Is that the one?
Yeah, Brody, Laser Brody, yeah. He apparently knows the Melitzer.
Harvard.
Yeah. I know the Melitzer Nashville. I mean, it's very nice. It is a little bit too much written as if you were Jewish, or but still, the stuff a lot of stuff is very, very interesting and very nice, because I think Emunah is something that's very important for Noahides to be discussed about in the type of way he discusses about it. Very simple questions of Emunah. It's something very important for Noahides. We'll get around to that also, because when we talk about religion, Noahides, we basically deal with theology. We'll discuss the Yud Gimel Midas from the Rambam, and we'll discuss which is required for Noahide and which are things that are true, and Noahide should understand these and incorporate them within their life. So that'll be an interesting when we get to it. But the point is that there really isn't anything taken from the point of view of understanding the paradigm of Noahide life, what it's supposed to be, and keying in on it. And the books that we have that would be really great to learn with Noahides were written for Jews, and hence have a lot of stuff about learning Torah. The biggest sin you'll find talked about in a lot of these works is not learning Torah. So it's like, no, that's very nice. It doesn't apply to you. It's like, it's something that essentially only applies to Jewish men, and not even to Jewish women. Doesn't really apply. No mitzvah learning Torah for a Jewish woman. She learns what she needs to know. Whereas a man, a Jewish man, whatever he learns in Torah is interesting. It's Gemara, it's Medrash, whatever person would do it. But the Noahide, the learning for them is a practical. It involves in knowing what to do to fulfill what Hashem wants to do. So even though it's not a mitzvah, it's an obligation. When you're learning those things that relate to how to live your day-to-day life as a Noahide. So it's I don't know, whatever. Maybe I can convince more people to sit down and say, hey, listen, let's write things for Noahides based on certain Jewish works and concepts that they can, just pick up on themselves and understand. Okay, I am now going to turn on my, where is it here? Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, this is the fourth, we're in the third unit, which is Noahides and Torah, or Torah Noahides. It doesn't make a difference way you do it. It's basically the same thing. And this is actually the fourth one. We started going through in the second class, I guess we want to call it. We started dealing with the Torah and what's in the Torah and how Noahides can gain from it. So let's go back a little bit, reviewing what we've been doing until now. The first session we had, the first class we had, dealt with some of the basic outlines of what the Torah is about, but also more importantly, to point out the difference of the paradigm of Torah from what the Christians have and what is a true paradigm, which Judaism understands and relates also to, obviously for Noahides also in that case. Okay, and much of what I'm doing as we go through here is to bring out different passages in the Tanakh that will emphasize these issues of the proper paradigm. Now, what we talked about in the first session was a very important thing to understand is that the Tanakh was not faxed down from heaven what to be in it. It was put together by what we would anachronistically call rabbis in the Babylonian exile. They weren't called rabbis then. Okay, they're called sages, something of that nature. But we call them rabbis because, we like to relate it to what we understand today. It makes it easier to understand. And when they got together, they went over, the Torah, of course, was given by Hashem, so that was definitely going to be in what we would call our canon, say. But there were a lot of other things going around there. And so they went among the things and chose them out. And they chose them out for specifically one people, for one reason. It was chosen out because this was a book for the Jewish people. And the books were chosen out because they had things in them which were necessary for the Jewish people to know in the future, when the second temple was built, and in general, just to know for their spiritual life and the life. Now, Because of this, there's a few different problems with the paradigm from Christianity, which again we talked about. If you want to, you can go back. Dan, you can always post the URL for the first one because it's spent quite a while discussing these issues. Among the most important differences, of course, is that the knowledge, the recognition that each of the books was written by a different author. It was not one book put together. It was a book that was put together by people in a certain age who chose them out for a certain reason, which is essentially for relationship to what the Jewish people need to know in the future. It was not chosen out for non-Jewish people. Now, all of the rabbinic authorities, except for a few of them, but basically almost all of the rabbinic authorities agree that Noahides are allowed to learn Tanakh because they recognize that there are things that Noahides can gain from that. And in order to gain from it, you really have to be coming with it, into it, with the proper understanding what it is. And the first thing to understand is that the book of the Tanakh is written for Jews and about Jews. Okay. Once you know what that is, then of course you're set with the problems. Why should I read it? It's written for somebody else. And in that's what we're going to try, and that's what I'm trying to do now, is to show you why and what kind of things that Noahides could see in it, which for themselves will be important. Not just, I mean, in basic general, we could say that since the Tanakh does relate the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people. So, okay, the fact that you can recognize and see how Hashem works in this world and his people and stuff like that, that of course is a value to itself. But what I'm trying to talk about is on a more personal value, a more personal way. Like, for example, when a Jew reads the Tanakh, I'm a Levite, so I see things that's talked about in my tribe. My mother's father's father was a Kohen, meaning he goes back to is the direct father, the son direct descended from Aaron in the Torah, and Moshe would essentially be my uncle, Aaron's my grandfather on the maternal side, not the paternal side, but still related. So when I read the Tanakh, there's a personal part of it. So as a Noahide, you don't have that personal relationship. But again, you want to be able to have your eyes open to understand when you do learn the Tanakh, what's really there that is as you as a Noahide should be picking up on, not just reading it from the historical part with the Jewish people. What's the lessons that are there for you also that may not have been written there for you specifically, but things that you could see from there that for you yourself you can pick up. So that was one of them. The other one is as we go through it, we see certain things that are contrary to specifically the Protestant idea of sola scriptura. The Tanakh was not made to be the only source of authority for how one's to live one's life. We're going to see something. We do discuss